Hey, hey, ha, ha, ho, ho. We are, I hope, live. This is WVU football going deep. I am Forrest Poston, joined as often or always in this room by Reggie and Holly Go. Hopefully, they will be silent partners tonight. Well, we are at the halfway point of spring camp. Players either have or soon will be leaving uh, for spring break uh, and doing what they can first to recover and then to remember so we can get off to a fast start again once camp resumes. And yeah, once I will try. No, I can't really do this without the glasses. Yeah, I'm sorry I get glare with the glasses, but I can't read the comments without the glasses, assuming we do have anybody come in to. Oh, hey, we have 4 people here. By golly, I wasn't sure we'd get 4 all night. The way things have been going. Welcome to you, whoever you may be. Uh, I have a bunch of things that I will talk about. If you've been here before, you should know that I rather enjoy talking. But certainly open to questions, whether they happen to match what I intended to talk about or not. Preferably related to West Virginia football or some of what's happening in college football overall. That's fine. Uh, I think really with particularly watching the press conferences so far, there have been 2 particular storylines that have been consistent. One of them is, hey, oh, there goes Reggie. I hope, okay, yeah, she didn't manage to end the stream. She is getting better at the catly talent of using the keyboard. But first big thread is it is not only spring camp, it is the first spring camp in a new system. Rodriguez says that pretty much every press conference, not everyone, but pretty much. He talks about how the players aren't where he would like them to be, and then he mentions that, well, it's fine because it's spring camp, it's a new system. First spring everywhere he has ever coached has been a problem. And then you get the media out there talking about how upset Rodriguez is with the team. And it's not true. Now, today he actually specified that the team is pretty much where it is expected to be. They are not ready to play a game, but for spring, the first spring, they are pretty much where they need to be. Now he and the other coaches get this week to start doing more significant evaluation and be ready when the players come back because, yeah, we do have to get down to that 105 limit, which kind of brings up the second major thread, and that is, of course, the roster. It's always a big deal. It's been a bigger deal with the spring, with the portal. Spring portal comes up a week after camp, I think. And this year is even bigger because we're going from 120 players to 105 players. And it may not, 15 players may not sound like a lot, but if you're one of the 15, it's a whole lot. And if you are a coach trying to figure out how to get through a season with 105 players and that's it, you're not adding people if something goes wrong. Once it's set, it's set. We do not have trades. We do not have a practice squad. And more than likely, we do not have walk-ons. And man, I hate that. I mean, the psychology and culture of West Virginia just lends itself to the idea of walk-ons. Guys who come in with the odds against them and maybe earn a scholarship, maybe become stars. We've watched it happen many times at West Virginia. That's essentially gone. And I hate it. And there are currently, I think, 15 or 16 walk-ons still on the roster. I mean, who are not specialists. I'm not counting punters, kickers, long snappers. And it's going to be really tricky there. Because at the moment, just go ahead and dive into roster. And assume that my numbers are off by one or two here or there. Yeah, I didn't go over these twice, but we have about 107 players currently in camp, counting walk-ons. So even with just who's here, we're over the limit that will be coming. We have 17 who are still coming later this summer or fall. That includes, the rest of the freshmen who weren't early enrollees, more of the transfers and junior college players. So somewhere in the neighborhood of 19 players have to go. If they cut every walk-on except the specialists, I don't think they'll keep all of the specialists, but with the numbers they've got, they'll have to keep most of them, especially if anybody who is good as a punter and a kicker has a better chance. But that would get it down, would still need to cut 3 or 4. And that's not counting where they may want to add in the portal. Now, of course, somebody is going to leave. We don't know who. There will be a few that they pretty much have to say, hey, you don't have a spot here. And there will almost certainly be some who just decide they'd rather play somewhere else for multiple reasons. Hopefully it won't be very many. Hopefully it will be the spots where we can afford to lose. Let's see here, because cornerbacks, we have 11 in camp. 2 of whom are walk-ons. So let's say 9 in camp, assuming the walk-ons are gone, and 4 coming in. 13 corners. I don't see that standing. You can't use 13 corners with a 105-man limit. So I hope some corners leave. Which ones? I'm not sure it matters to me. Let's hope the best ones stay, okay? And I've said before, also safeties. What do we got here? Safety. Oops, page 4. Where are we at here? We have 10 in camp. None of them are walk-ons, and at least 1 coming in. So 11 safeties. And that's not counting nickel. Nickel's a separate spot that's got 4 players there. So that's what, 14, 15, That's like 29 defensive backs. That's like a quarter of the roster, more than a quarter of the roster. Can't do it. Just can't do it. Um, so I'm hoping defensive backs leave. I mean, I'd like to hang on to some of the guys who came in last year, like Boyce. Um, in some respects, I'm hoping some of the transfers with 1 year left are the ones to leave because we never got to know them. And I'd sooner, I'd rather keep the guys that we've come to know. Of course, there aren't many of them on the team right now. 40, something like that, who have been around a year or more. Um, well, we still got 4 people in here. We're not getting any questions so far. Um, Reggie did manage to almost post a comment, so I've deleted that. I do hope we'll get some questions, comments, that sort of thing. But let me cover a few more things that came up in today's press conferences since I didn't do a video about that. Jaheim White is working out with the team and may be ready to go full speed after break. That's very good news. That'll give him a couple of weeks in camp and really getting to know the system, hands-on instead of just mental learning. And I mean, Rodriguez has repeated time and again, he has no worries about White. He's aware of what he can do, fully expects him to, have a good year. And pretty much every time running backs come up, he also mentions Edwards and Turner and Hubbard. I don't think he has ever mentioned Dunbar or the 2 walk-ons, Ash and Price. Price never had a chance. He's, I think, 168 pounds, something like that. He'd need to add a good 15 pounds. And now he was on some special teams last year, I think, and he did, he got maybe a blue collar award or a scout team award, something like that. So, I mean, hey, he's a dedicated player. And he is the kind of player that you like to have on a team because scout team is important. And having guys who work hard, even though they're on the scout team and will probably never be on more than scout and maybe a special team, but they still have the work ethic because they want to be there and they love the game. You want them. With 105 limit, you can't keep them just for that. It has to be guys who will contribute on the field on game day. That means Clay Ash is also probably gone. He did play a little bit last year. Special teams. And you wonder about Dunbar. Don't know if there's a reason why he doesn't get mentioned. Is there really a problem? Don't know. And some of the players are not going to be happy with the way things are run. If you take 100 players and put them with any coach, there will be some who don't like how things are done. And that's fine because maybe, again, it's about fit. It's not necessarily about who's right, who's wrong. It's about fit. And let's see. He did say they will be looking at every position in the portal just in case. If they find somebody they think will help, they take him. If there's a spot. But I mean, not expecting to take a quarterback. Um, he still talks about not being satisfied with the numbers in the wide receiver room. We've got 11 and one coming in, and Garrett today said they might have anywhere from 2 to 5 receivers on the field at any time. If you want to play 5 receivers, maybe you need more than 12 on the team. I don't really think they're going to use 4 or 5 receivers very often. When they do, it will probably be to spread the team out to run. You know, I do not, you know, um, I think it was Rhett Rodriguez who said, if we have to throw the ball 60 times to win, we will. And there's a temptation to stand up and swear because I don't think that's going to happen. I think it would be hard to convince Rich Rodriguez that he needs to throw the ball 60 times in order to win. But I think the only way we throw the ball more than 45% of the time is if the defense stops the first 2 run options, the running back and the quarterback, and forces the team to throw consistently. Now, if I were a defensive coordinator, I think I could do that. you know, that remains the potential flaw in Rodriguez's system, in that you can figure out what the reads are and manipulate that as a defensive coordinator. And Rich Rodriguez has said many times it's about execution. So the idea is, if you execute well enough, you make the play work even if the defense knows where the ball's going. Well, that didn't work so well against Pitt. Yeah. So it's proven that it can be stopped. So we got to wait and see. Hold on, let's see. I'd like to say we're building for both, but I'm not convinced we are. Rich Rodriguez says, or I think it was Rich Rodriguez, one of the coaches in the last couple of weeks has, said that, would like to take guys in the portal with more than a year left, but it's not critical. And you look at the number of guys they took with just 1 year, and they're building for this year. Zach Alley just kind of slid through this little thing of, you're not looking at a guy who can contribute, who will be great in 3 years. You want a guy who can contribute now. And that doesn't sound like you're recruiting high school and building for the future. And so it kind of worries me. Under the current regulations or lack thereof, a lot of teams are going to go that way, because you can trash everybody on the team and rebuild every year if you really want to. And if you're willing to take the risks that are involved in that. So the temptation to just try to bring in gunslingers, hired guns, for 1 year to win a championship, and then you don't care what happens, it's a strong temptation for some. It's not going to work very often, and certainly not going to work very often for any but the highest teams. With the expanded playoff, that attitude will get you into the playoff, but you'll get your butt kicked by somebody. People point out how well Indiana did the first year with the coach, and somebody else pointed out, yeah, look at who they played. Every good team they played beat them. So that's the old bit. If somebody says numbers don't lie, look closer, because numbers are the easiest and probably most popular way to mislead. uh, Sometimes it's more sleight of hand. They get you to look at these numbers and keep you from asking about other numbers. Um, and yeah, Josh, you are correct. I had not talked about it because I don't give a crap. uh, I'm glad it seems that he's not completely banned TikTok. If he wants to ban posting dances on TikTok, I don't much care. I wouldn't ban it. I would probably mention to players that in the past, teams who had a great season and spent the off season doing dances had a bad season the following year. It is about focus. Now, Rich Rodriguez was, it's about the image that you present. And I think that image depends on the dance you do and how well you do it. But just historically, whenever teams have kind of gotten into that celebratory, you know, enjoying the publicity kind of attitude, you lose an edge. And this whole thing about hard edge, it's misleading because, it can cover so many things. But yeah, a type of, I would sooner say sharp edge. Of course, sharp edge needs to be tough. But, if you're dancing on TikTok, you may not have the sharp edge focus that you need. But then, not everybody is going to lose focus just by dancing on TikTok. So, but overall, who cares? Yep, hello, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you are stopping for a while and not just passing through. Back to some of the press conference. Now, I am happy here in about the last, well, let's say this week, media has asked some more specific questions. Not enough of them, but they're getting there. And the coaches are starting to name names, give some details. Not enough, but we're getting there. I don't know how much more. I think Rodriguez wants to keep as much of a lid on things as he feels like he can get away with. As popular as he is with a lot of fans, you can still lose that. So yeah, he does have to give some things to keep the fans happy. And I'm wondering how happy fans are going to be after this spring, whatever they call it. Coaches have tried that before at West Virginia. And if you go back, they didn't do it more than 1 or 2 years before they went back to playing a good bit of football. Now, with things of that type and just in general, if you keep trying them, sooner or later people kind of say, oh, well. So maybe that's what'll happen. But I'm really hoping people are just thoroughly pissed if he doesn't give them football. And he's talking about dang little football. So, of course, if he wins games in the season, people will forgive him in a hurry. Yeah. Talking about receivers, basically, he talked about Preston Fox, being important. He's a leader. He's reliable. He works hard. Preston Fox is the prototypical walk-on. Yeah. Never became a star, but he became important and close to a star as a punt returner. If he picks up where he left off, he will be a star as a punt returner if he gets good blocking. Also, oh shoot, hold on, I can never remember some of the last names of the new guys. Vaughn, yeah, Cam Vaughn. He comes up a lot because, based on how he ended last year, there's some expectation of him being a star. And they like what he's doing, like what he has as talent. He was a quarterback in high school. He was recruited as a quarterback. Rich Rodriguez couldn't remember, but oh shoot, Ryan Garrett said he was recruited as a quarterback, but he looked at him and thought, man, he'd be a great wide receiver, and that's where he ended up. But like Gallagher, when he started here, he's still learning the wide receiver position. He's essentially a year behind Gallagher in that respect. So it brings up, he's got talent, ended great at Jacksonville State. What is his ceiling? How close to it will he get? Because having talent and converting it are two different things. And how will it play out at high level P4 football? He's going against better people than he did last year most of the time. So hopes are high for him. Coaches are pleased. Coaches are hopeful. And of course, fans are going to hear a lot about him and become hopeful as well. And he is probably, this subject came up, we've just started to get some assistant coaches mixed in with the press conferences. We're still not getting players. And I think somebody like Cam Vaughn would be a good choice. He's a Rodriguez player. So he's going to be here. I don't think he's leaving. I don't think he'll get cut. So why not introduce him to the fans? I'd like to see, these guys. And I think, we don't get a lot of it. I don't know how much these videos get watched when the players are on. But dang it, some of us like to know the players, especially when, 50 or 60 of them are new. But yeah, also both guys today talked about Bray, and they're very pleased with what he has done. It works very hard, just in terms of his work ethic and willingness to be coached. He is what you want, which is, of course, the same thing we heard when he came here. Just had an injury issue last year, and then, so we never really got to see him. But those are the three receivers who are most mentioned. And we do largely hear the same things from both coaches. Fox works hard, and we've got talent, working hard. And these are things that we've heard before. I've said this, we are not hearing any new ideas compared to previous years, just different language and different presentation. But yeah, it's Rodriguez says we need more competition at wide receiver, but we're good at slot. Yeah. Part of me says if we still need more competition at wide receiver, they did crap in the portal. You can't have it both ways. They brought in several receivers. So if they're good at evaluating talent and personality, we should be set at wide receiver. If we're not, what happened? We'll see. Ryan Garrett seems to be more pleased and positive about the wide receivers than Rich Rodriguez is. But he said, still trying to find out who fits where. They do want every receiver to learn all four positions. Again, that's not new. Uh, High praise for Gallagher, although I actually, did try to recruit Gallagher for Jacksonville State. Um, Found him because of his basketball skills. That's where he first saw him. Likes players who play multiple sports. By golly, I seem to think we heard that before. So stop giving me any ideas that there's this big difference in what the coaches want. How they go about it might be different, but what they want, no, it's not different. Um, yeah, well, Mike, uh, I don't I don't think the expectations should be low. I think we need to put the pressure on. Rodriguez talks about putting pressure on players, developing a hard edge. Well, you know, I don't give a crap what people say. When he was hired, the talent on the team was good. Now, lost a bunch of that talent. Not sure exactly why. We'll never know why for most of them. But you know, Rodriguez talks about all the importance of being able to evaluate players. You've got media, professional media, semi-professional media, and fans who keep saying Rodriguez knows talent. Rodriguez can develop talent. Well, if that's true, there is no excuse for less than 8 wins. Um, I don't know what I expect, but if Rodriguez is any good at, uh, evaluating talent, we should have a good team. The foundation was there, a lot better for this type of game than when he first took over at West Virginia and had, an entirely different type of player. Um, and of course, the transfer portal changes how fast you can potentially build a team. But I I want people to have high expectations because I don't want to give Rodriguez any excuses, none. And I don't really think he'd ask for any. But you know, if he is what people claim he is, it should be a big season, loaded with talent at quarterback, lots of talent at running back. You know, we'll see. It, I think I'm going to have to do something about expectations. Maybe do a video there. Let's see. Um, yeah. Listen, West Virginia should beat OU soundly, um, but I think it may be a better game than a lot of West Virginia fans want it to be. OU has, they have had a good tradition, not consistently, but off and on a good, tradition for the last 35, 40 years. Um, they've had a lot of really good teams, not, guys that are going to, go through the playoff, but they've had good teams. But, you know, West Virginia dang well better win the game by 3 touchdowns. Uh, I do miss my years at OU. Spent a lot of time dealing with some less than ideal faculty administration people, but also had some very good ones. Man, John Hollow was everything a university administrator should be. I miss that guy. Yeah, O-line is a question. And of course, in some respects, it's one of them that shouldn't have been. I don't, we lost some key players, but Bosley's supposed to be good. He'll be in his third year. That's the year that, an offensive lineman should frequently be ready. He had a year in Rodriguez's system. He's in his second year with Mike Joseph, which makes a difference. And the nutrition program at West Virginia, let's not forget that. Although I will, man, one thing with Rodriguez, he does not talk about the extras. I have not heard him mention the nutrition program. Only occasionally mentions, the strength program. These are the things that bother me about Rodriguez. I have hopes for him on strictly football level, but he would never have created the fifth quarter program. It wouldn't have even occurred to him. But we're bringing in multiple guys from the portal, guys who mostly weren't really top notch, but looked like they had maybe more potential than they had a chance to show. Nick Cray, for a couple of years, we've heard about him. It's his third year, so he should be ready. We have talent, experience, not so much. We lost backups. The guys who had played the most as backups, with the exception of Livingston, also left. That hurt. That really hurt. Although they probably would have been backups this year as well. So, they had good reason to leave. But it still hurts. But Rodriguez, he talked about the system being freshman friendly. And it's also, it's friendly towards younger linemen. The questions of who blocks whom are a lot simpler. It's a matter of the athleticism to get where you need to be, the technique to get the angle, and the strength and edge to win when you and the other guy collide. But yeah, it's not so much knowing, this guy's going here, this guy's going there. If they shift, you have to do this or that. It's zone. You block this area, and whoever comes in there, you block. So the potential is there. Now, of course, we did have, one of the incoming freshman linemen is not coming. Aiden Buchanan's going to North Carolina, which does not hurt this year. But that question of building for the future, there it hurts. There it hurts. Yeah, so lots and lots new. So then you always wonder. Now, folks, I am going to go ahead and bring these self-promotions up here while I talk a little bit. Let's see. But yeah, Ryan Garrett, he was high on Gallagher. Impressed with his ball skills, has especially done some things downfield. And we were starting to see that at the end of last season. A couple of big plays in the ball game, as I recall. And it has just been learning the position. A lot of people, he's not doing anything downfield. He's learning the position. That was coming on last year. Sounds like good progress this year. Now, if Gallagher has a breakout season, fans are going to say that Brown didn't use him well. They're already saying that. And again, he picked out Bray as, I think close to a quote, phenomenal job busting his butt, and fits what we want to do. Now, he did say one thing that bugged me. He was asked, how do you get the best out of Bray? And Garrett said he has to get the best out of himself. And I said, yeah. But yeah, ultimately, it is the player who has to do it. But part of the job is helping the player do it. Oh, shoot, one of the other, actually, I think it was, I don't know if it was Rhett Rodriguez uh, or the defensive back coach, but talked about, actually, it was defensive back coach, I think, getting to know the players beyond football so that you know how best to coach each one. That's how you get the best out of any player. You get to know them as people, not as X's or O's, and you coach them how they best respond, how they best learn. Whether it's stick, carrot, what else? You approach this. Because now, our education system, traditionally, the way we approach learning is you do it this way, period. And a lot of people still think, that's right. Culturally, we believe pain is better than pleasure. Yeah, we are a masochistic and sadistic society. That goes way back, you know, uh, before the United States existed. But trying to understand that pleasure is actually a good way to learn. But okay, that was main stuff there from the press conferences. Um, let's see, we were having a good run of questions there. Whoops, we're down to 3 people. I'm doing something wrong. Uh, or maybe the people who were here just weren't a fit. I don't have to take the blame, but I'll blame it on YouTube. Yeah, that's good. Kind of back to the roster, unless we get another question coming. Oh, no, I did want to talk specifically about this. Larry Porter and Mike Kazaza, 24/7, always sends in a Freedom of Information request to get the contract information. We got that, I think, today. And it's a 1-year contract for $300,000. Now, $300,000 is not bad for a running backs coach. I don't know what he got last year at North Carolina. The 1 year is the one that should raise eyebrows. Coaches worked hard at West Virginia for many years to start getting their coaches 2-year contracts instead of 1. Now, was this a West Virginia thing and he agreed to it? Or did he want a 1-year contract? A 1-year contract, if that's Porter's choice, suggests that this is just passing through. And Porter does actually have a long history of being at places for a short time. But, it just makes you wonder, is it just because they wanted to kind of see whether it was a fit? Porter and Rodriguez have not coached together before. So maybe it's just a trial run. Maybe Porter doesn't plan to be here for more than a year. Don't know. And that goes back to, are we planning for this year or for the future or both? you know, this looks more like planning for this year. But and I'm also going to flip back to the Blaine Stewart story with you. If even if you didn't see my video, you probably know Blaine Stewart has left the team to coach at Tampa Bay. I heard he's going to be a quality control coach, whatever that means. Uh, and it eventually occurred to me, there's unless you are an assistant to a position coach or an assistant to an assistant, something low on the, you don't have any upward mobility in this system. When there's a position coach for every position, I mean, next thing you know, there's going to be a position coach for the left tackle's right thumb. And, Blaine Stewart was inside receivers coach. He could switch to tight ends. He could switch to wide receivers. That's not upward mobility. Wouldn't be like going from tight end coach to wide receiver coach, which was a larger position in the past. And so for him, the only upward spot would be offensive coordinator. Now, of course, there's a lot more competition for that. Several of the guys on the staff are long-term Rodriguez guys, and more specifically, there's a guy named Rhett Rodriguez coaching quarterbacks. And I kind of have to wonder if, intentionally or not, he's being groomed to become the offensive coordinator in a year or two. Never named anybody as offensive coordinator this year. Clint Trickett is the, senior assistant to the head coach, and he has bounced around wherever he needs to be, but he was not named offensive coordinator. So is he a placeholder for Rhett Rodriguez? And does Rhett Rodriguez know this? I don't know. He did a good job in his press conference. I generally like his ideas. I think he would be better suited to go coach someplace else for a while to get, ideas other than, the whole deal is, hey, he knows what Rich wants. He knows what it's supposed to look like. Well, what are his ideas? Who would he be as a coach if he were being himself? And he is different from his father. And, I'm and I'm not necessarily against this. He may become offensive coordinator. He may be a great offensive coordinator when he does. I'm only saying that I kind of think there's a lid on upward mobility in the West Virginia offense for coaches. Because I think Rhett Rodriguez probably has a significant edge there over everybody else. We'll see if I'm right. Only take a year or two, maybe. We'll see. Let's. Well, of course, that partly depends on what are the air raid concepts. Rhett Rodriguez talked about. Now, this was at a different school, but under his father, when he was a quarterback, with 4 verticals, because that's part of how you attack a 3 high safety. So that suggests 4 verticals sounds like an air raid concept. Ryan Garrett talked about having as many as 5 receivers on the field, which sounds like an air raid concept. But as I said earlier, I kind of think it's more spreading the other team out to try to create gaps for running. I if If you were to ask this question of Rich Rodriguez, I have a feeling he would say that you adapt, and he has said something like this. You adapt things from every system if they will work within your system. Um, I think there will be some air raid type concepts that can be used, but again, how extensive does it have to be? Do you have to pass 40 times to be an air raid concept? No, I don't think we'll pass that much. But having multiple receivers and route trees similar to air raid, and I don't even know what route trees would fit like that. But yes, I think, I think some of those concepts have seeped in pretty much everywhere, but I think it will be, I don't think you will notice it in particular. I don't think we're going to have a drive that looks like an air raid team. Now, having said that, again, Rodriguez is to some degree willing to adapt his calls to the abilities of the quarterback. So if someone is that much better, they're a good enough runner for the system, but a significantly better passer, then you might get more passes called. And you might also simply get more passes chosen with, the RPO. Remember the option. But I could probably watch game film of every game next season, and I wouldn't really be able to tell you if they used an air raid concept in that game unless the announcers mentioned it or the coaches talked about it afterwards. Well, yeah. Back to roster, kind of thinking, where are we likely to need people? Where are we likely to lose people? Looking at the defensive line, we've got 14, two of whom are walk-ons. So let's say 12, and like 4 or 5 coming in, depending on where certain guys get used. I don't really, 16 defensive linemen and wanting to play some 4 down, maybe. I think 5 of these guys will be edge rushers, and there's still a possibility that they want more. One of the coaches said you can never have too many edge rushers. With a 105-man limit, you can have too many edge rushers, or not enough, depending on how you want to look at it. But I think we better be, oh shoot, defensive line is going to be young. We got Vester Rennan as the elder guy who's been here a while. McIntyre coming into his 3rd year, but coming off of an injury, was healthy at the end of last year. Kinsler's, what will be his 2nd year? Gabriel, good flashes, but young. Redwood and Russell, yeah. They, should be at the peak of their game. If Redwood can avoid an injury, dang it, he's 2 years in a row, he's had injury problems, but he has shown tremendous ability for a guy who is relatively new to the game. If Redwood puts it together, the defensive line is going to wreak havoc. Now, of course, that's what it's supposed to do under this system. and will frequently have two edge rushers on the field. So yeah, we need 4 or 5 edge rushers. Um, Now, one thing with the Bandit, we brought Siders in. He's got 1 year left. They've talked about how well he's done. That's good. And have talked about Curtis Jones, who I think is a redshirt freshman. We have not heard any mention of Onwuka, who is supposed to be the great talent. Um, and that kind of concerns me. Of course, nobody has asked how he's doing. And it is first spring. So adapting to system, it's not that particularly new a position, though he did not get to do much last year with his own injury. So, you know, I want to hear some good news about him before spring is over. Linebacker, I think we should be set. We have 7 scholarship linebackers plus 1 more coming in. Offensive line, like you say, it's a question. Offensive line is where I think we may end up keeping some of the walk-ons. We've got Kovaleski, who switched from linebacker to offensive line. And we've got Griffin Fogel and Andreas Hunter. And Hunter is another West Virginia product. And there is no denying that Rich Rodriguez has a soft spot for West Virginia players. Will that, I mean, if it's a coin flip between 2 players, being from West Virginia will win you that flip, I think. But I don't think Rodriguez will let it affect his judgment unless it's that close. And I mean, I am hoping some walk-ons manage to stay. They won't be walk-ons anymore. Everybody on that 105 is going to be getting some kind of money, whether it is a regular scholarship and what they are calling an NIL scholarship, something. But, that's an offensive line. I kind of hope, things will pan out there. Other than specialists, that's the only place I see likely that a walk-on will stay. Because let's see, we have 15 offensive linemen counting the walk-ons. We've got 3 coming in. 15 has normally been about the minimum that you want. You'd kind of like to have, 15, 16, 17. But will you be able to carry that many offensive linemen when you've got a lower limit? Quarterback is another question. Competition, they say, is going well. We've got 2 walk-on quarterbacks. You gotta figure they're gone. Rodriguez wants to be down to a top 4 by the end of spring or early, soon after, just to focus on who's getting the most work. Now, just based on age, Wilkins and Fox are the ones most likely to be 5 and 6. Wilkins was injured. I know nothing about how serious, whether or not he's, fully practicing now or not. I mean, his film before, you'd think he is perfect for this offense. But it's only, he's young. So we're still looking at Markel, Henderson, and Brown as top 3. Now let's, okay, let me, let me flip that a little bit. It's going to Wilkins and Fox. Who's going to be the 4th one? Because we only have 5 scholarship quarterbacks, not 6. Somehow that's what I was running with. And nobody, and I mean nobody, has a clue who is going to be number one or number two or number three. I mean, you're kind of thinking, Markel Henderson and Brown as top three because they're the most experienced. Fox, true freshman. Wilkins, how much is he coming on? I don't know how much weight he's put on. He needed muscle. And of course, that's, in this offense, a quarterback has to be able to take a hit. And that usually means not just pads, but muscle. Yeah. And I don't know, I don't think we've gotten a comparison of weights from this year versus last year yet. So if Wilkins has put on enough, muscle, he might take the number 3 spot or 4 spot. Fox, Rich Rodriguez picked him out, mentioning that he had done well and would have a bright future. How far up the list can that move him? Don't know. And we could lose a quarterback in the spring portal. We really could. It's not essential. But I think Henderson has 1 year, Markel 2 years, and Brown, I'm not sure if it's 1 or 2. So for those guys, this year really matters. So one of them could leave if they really don't think they've got a shot at 1 or 2 at playing time. But will they know that by the end of spring? I don't know. But Wilkins and Fox, they've got time to wait. Okay. I think I mentioned most of the others. So what time is it getting to be? I need to start writing up a conclusion. I end up just kind of looking and realizing that I've covered most of the stuff on my list and don't have any particular place to go from there. But do we have more questions? We're hanging at 4 people. We never did get very high. It has been an hour, so at least I've managed to talk a lot. Whether or not I've said a lot. Does anybody, have particular questions about how they think the second half is going to play out? How they think Rodriguez, and for that matter, hey, Mike Young and I are the only two who've really talked about expectations for the season. It's early, but you're allowed to have expectations. So, what are others thinking in those terms? Do you think it is reasonable to hope for 8 or more wins or expect 8 or more wins? Or do you think that is unreasonable? Of course, we know we want more than that. But what is a reasonable expectation? Like I say, if I believe if it's not 8 wins, Rodriguez is not the coach people claim he is. Now, of course, that's assuming we don't get smacked by key injuries and all that sort of thing. And injuries are going to be a bigger factor than ever with the 105 limit. You should still be really good on the 2 deep, but you may have to start skimping on the 3 deep for some positions. And again, that question of, do you keep a guy who won't play much or at all this year because he's going to be great next year? Again, that goes back to, the question, are we building for this year or next year? Yeah. And ladies, I think we're building mostly for this year. Who makes it on the 105 roster may give a more definitive answer. Are they willing to keep guys who are still a year or two away? Because the idea of only bringing in guys who are ready isn't going to cut it, especially at West Virginia, because I don't think we can bring in that many guys who are ready. We have traditionally been a developmental program, not so much we're preparing guys to go elsewhere, that I don't like, but bringing in guys who need time, diamonds in the rough. And that's what, one of the things people liked about Rodriguez the first time around was that he, as the story goes, and I would have to really double check, found the diamonds in the rough and turned them into good players or better players. But that takes some time. A diamond in the rough has to be cut and polished. So, I don't know. And I'm, what what Rodriguez thinks he's doing, thinks he would do under certain circumstances, may not be what he does. If you've paid attention to your own thoughts and behavior, you've noticed they don't always match up. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be harder to force yourself to play the long game, to be happy with 8 or 9 wins this year, because it means 10 or 11 wins next year. Of course, on the other hand, how many of us will be around next year to see? I know my viewership, according to the analytics, is gray-haired, those of you who still have hair. So, yeah, it's we may need Rodriguez to play for this year. Oh gosh, I don't like to think in those terms, but what the heck. All right, guys. Wouldn't you know? Now we're up to 6 people watching. I'm out of things to really talk about. Now I can ramble as long as you guys want, but I'd really like to answer some questions. Oh, looks okay. I've got the cover on one. Yeah, here we go. Right now, that's a little bit unknown. Now, I think the revenue sharing, we're supposed to be at the maximum of 20 million. They have a plan in place. They have not announced it yet, but they have a plan in place that should have West Virginia at the 20 million revenue sharing maximum. There had been claims for, that the Country Roads Trust was doing exceptionally well a year and a half ago, and that West Virginia was just in great shape. And then it turned out we were in the bottom third of the conference because the Country Roads Trust was not doing anywhere close to as well as they claimed. I don't know what was going on. I am curious. I'd like to know if there's a real reason why Maisie left other than her husband retiring as coach. And I apologize for not remembering her first name. But it seemed rather abrupt when she left. There are a couple of people involved in the operation of the Country Roads Trust that I don't trust. Um, and I don't even know I don't know if Country Roads Trust even still exists. Of course, how NIL is going to be handled is a question. There were claims that with Rodriguez being rehired, money was going to flow. Now, budget for coaches went up, so Rodriguez has been able to hire pretty much anybody he really, really wanted, and as many as he really, really wanted. Whether or not some of that money is coming from donors isn't clear as far as I know. And I think the whole NIL system, I mean, with the revenue sharing, the NIL system kind of becomes less significant. Because, I mean, it was based, I mean, most players weren't really going to get diddly because their name, image, and likeness wasn't valuable, marketable. Because that's, you know, I mean, you needed to have somebody who was willing to pay. Whether it's, you know, Toothman Ford was highly involved. Country Roads Trust would have guys on their show and pay them for the appearance. They would sell signed helmets and that sort of thing and say that all the money went to the players. And I would ask them to define all. Are we talking about the total or are we talking about the net profit on an item? You know? So I kind of suspect that NIL is in a mess. And we have not heard any confirmation of this whole money flowing from the donors idea. Now I think the backers love Rodriguez. You know, he knows how to schmooze with those particular kinds of people. Or he seems to. If he'd been a little more patient, he could have smoothed them into more facilities. But so yeah, it's a very good question, and I'm not sure if anybody knows the answer right now. But at the end of last season, the NIL standing in the conference sucked rocks. It was part of the problem. It was not getting, you know, they were claiming that it was all good, but it was part of the problem. And I'm convinced that some serious shit went down last season that affected the team. And I don't think we'll ever likely know what it was because I don't think anybody will dig it out. Whether or not it relates to NIL, that I don't know. Hey, there's a lot of things I don't know. We're up to 7 people. Good grief. Was there another live show that ended and people are coming over here finally? Now, 7 still sucks as a number, you know, even compared to the, you know, hideously poor numbers I usually get on live shows. But I was also wondering whether or not anybody would show up. So I didn't do it earlier. I should have, but please watch the videos. If there are ones, you know, go back and check the channel and see if you missed some. Because right now I'm lucky to get 100 views on videos. That won't cut it. You know, I've got to at least get up back into the 300, 400 range for the off season, which is slow time. And I have to, you know, be better than that during the season. Otherwise, yeah. I mean, I keep trying to stop doing this channel. And I just keep coming back to it, you know, because Partly because I'm just tied to it. I want West Virginia football to do well. And also because it's a whole lot easier for me to talk about football than it is to, do some of the more serious videos that actually require more preparation, where I do have to have an ending. All right, we're losing people. Oh, there we go. Um, I have nothing planned. Uh, Neither has, I have no plans to approach either of them. Mountaineer Paul and I do not see eye to eye, and actually, more specifically, nowhere close. We would, you know, be at each other's throats in a short term. Coups, we have more overlapping territory, although significant differences. Um, I I think I was on Coups' show once, um, and he dropped in on mine once, though I had not announced it ahead of time because he didn't know if he would make it, and it did not affect views. Um, I've appeared with you know Jordan Cruz, um, Country Roads webcast. That did not help my views. There goes Reggie across the board again. Um, so, I mean, I like the idea of being on some of those shows, but it has not, you know, had any great benefit. The majority of their viewers don't see things the way I do. Um, and that's not just where football's concerned. I'm not in the majority. Let's see here. Um, well, Linda, I'm not quite sure, uh, what I said that brought up the subject of lying. Um, it actually is a video I'm working on for my Thoughts and Mutters channel. The fact that, agreeing not to murder, not to steal, and not to lie are the three foundations necessary before any society can begin. Um, and some courts have actually ruled that lying is protected speech. It's not. Lying is fraud. Fraud is a crime. Uh, there's a Robert Heinlein novel called The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. And saying from that is Tannstaffel. There is no such thing as a free lunch. And that includes free speech. Free speech is something of an illusion. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater when there's no fire. You can't incite to riot. And, you know, you're not supposed to be able to get away with lying. Now, I have not followed, any of the stories you mentioned there. I have not lived, oh, criminy. I have not lived regularly in West Virginia since I was 22, something like that. At that point, I was at college most of the time. Got out of college, moved to Columbus, Ohio, took a job selling stereo equipment. And then Eugene, Oregon, back to Columbus, a summer in West Virginia, Logan, Ohio, while I was at Ohio University, and then here in Evansville. Been here since 1998. Although it's not as if uh, lying among politicians and businesses is any different here than it is there. I do encourage people to check out my Thoughts and Mutters channel. It includes some stories about my youth in West Virginia, the Ravenswood Marble Factory, uh, the grapevine at the end of the neighborhood. And that's when I proved that I cannot fly. Yeah, let's say you're not supposed to be able to incite a riot. But then again, Supreme Court hasn't declared that we have sovereign immunity, which is pretty much by definition an unconstitutional claim. But what do you do when the Supreme Court breaks the Constitution? We do not have any system for bringing sedition charges against the Supreme Court. Okay, I just pissed off a lot of people. I pissed off 2 or 3 people out of 4, but let's pretend that somebody will watch the live show all the way to this point and they'll get pissed off too. Okay, guys. I had a very late lunch, but I have not had supper, and we had somebody just join us now. My golly. Hey, whoever just joined, do you have a... Oh, there they went. If the new person is still here and that wasn't you who just left, do you have a question? I am going to allow just a little bit of time here for one more question. If somebody has it, we have kind of gotten off the subject, so I know that's, but is there a football question? WVU football, college football, what position I played in midget league, how many times I got knocked unconscious playing football, whether or not that really has any effect on my current state of mind. Okay. Does not appear that anybody has questions. So I'm going to go see about eating something. Check on the cats, the other cats, and talk to you guys later. I don't know when I will be doing another video since it is spring break and I'm not expecting any football news. But if something happens, I will plan on coming back. Oh, we got a who will play as a true freshman? Nobody. Possible exception will be Dwayne Galloway, although Coach Icy said that cornerback might be the hardest position to play as a freshman, and even Galloway will not have the muscle mass to play, but he might get in some. He should be becoming one of the best corners we've had in decades if he fills the promise. But freshman, tough. And I don't think I doubt that we'll see a freshman at tight end. There's enough guys ahead, but if they use 3 tight ends, we could see, Acuarty. I think he's the one that's the freshman. If the wide receivers are not as good as they claim, we could see Jaleel Hall or Tyshawn Dews. Hall would be more likely at receiver. Defensive line should be deep enough that we don't need. We've got some really good freshmen coming in there. Telemaque and Leonard Jean Charles. Um, but I don't really see any freshmen. We're actually, as things stand, not bringing in a freshman running back. Um, Now, actually, Crawford, I wasn't thinking of. Hmm. I mean, this system, an offensive lineman can play as a freshman, but we should have enough guys if they did well enough in the portal. And I'll come back to that time and again. If they did as well in the portal as you know, Rodriguez seems to think they should. I think there's enough guys ahead of Crawford, although it will. You can't do a lot of rotation on offense if you want to play at the tempo. I mean, Rodriguez says it's faster than before, and keeps getting faster. So you can't rotate linemen during a series. So I don't know. I think they'd have to go three deep. If Crawford might get in some, but I don't see him playing a lot. But of course, depends on how much he develops between now and fall. I'd have to go way back, of course, I don't, man, is there film? There's got to be some film with Chris Henry. Um, but I'd like to think that Hall is a more complete receiver and have to hope he does not come with the baggage that Chris Henry did, which was primarily medical. I mean, he needed, I mean, I think modern diagnosis would probably be something, um, oh, crime, and he can't even remember the terms that, currently used, but he did have some issues, caused behavioral issues that later were, I think, diagnosed as, um, like bipolar would be, I think, not the current term, but the previous term. We keep changing the names for it and don't significantly improve our understanding of it, I don't think. But yeah, I mean, that was a very sad case. You'd like to think in the modern world it would be caught and treated sooner. Um, but it's also one reason to get to know your players as people. But yeah, the film I watched on Hall, he was unusually complete for a high school, receiver. But Brandon Raymond will be a redshirt freshman, and I expect him to play because he was really complete in high school, far beyond what you normally see. He did not get anywhere near the attention I think he should have in people talking about that class. But I think he could be. I think he got mentioned once by Rodriguez, uh, but he is a guy I really have hopes for. I hope he hangs around. Um, Again, this any given coach is not going to be the one for any given player. You never know. Um, hmm, it's, I don't think Hall is an earlier enrollee. Or let me see here on my. No, I've got Hall as. Let's see. No, yeah, Hall is not an early enrollee. Um, so, he won't be getting a head start. That may make a difference, may not. Yeah, I mean, I understand, the height, speed, that sort of thing, baggage, we just have to hope it's not there. Uh, you do not want a player with baggage. Uh, that can be rough all around. Although, I mean, for heaven's sakes, yeah, if you know a guy has an issue, you help them. You don't punish them for it. But it's easier if they don't have that kind of emotional baggage that comes from not knowing you have a treatable issue. Um, you know, but okay. Oh, Crawford the earlier. Oh, yeah, okay. Yes. It's getting, well, it's not that late, but I am getting punchy, and we've covered a good bit of territory here in the last couple of minutes. Yeah, Crawford, early enrollee. Again, he had good film. The thing with the Rodriguez system is going to be footwork. And he's coming in 18, 19 years old, not, to be honest, not fully physically developed. So will his foot speed and coordination, be up to this offense by that point? And will he be here? We've Altuner from good counsel transferred. Buchanan from good counsel, got out of the letter of intent, whether it was his choice or Rodriguez's choice. Is this a pattern? Somebody on the 24/7 board raised the question, did Buchanan leave because of things Crawford was telling him? Yeah, boy, you don't like to think about it. You don't want to lose another guy with that much potential. But I do think, with Crawford, question of playing is going to be in the feet. And that's going to, with the offense, well, of course, it's true with a lot of the players, but it's more true with this offense for offensive linemen than it sometimes is otherwise. It's always important, but the foot speed has to be a little higher. Will it be there? Don't know. No, I don't. don't recognize the name at all, I'm afraid. Yep. Thanks, Mike. You two have a great night. If you're, whether you're still here or not, have a great night. You can even have a great tomorrow. I don't care. Go ahead. Have as many greats as you want or as you can. Always, yes, yeah. Have a great day. Have a great this, that. Boy, I only get one. Woo. Other days, have a great day, and it's like, man, that would be a nice change of pace, wouldn't it? Oh, all righty. Back up to 6 people. I am just not as high as I would like overall, but dang, I'm kind of fascinated at people coming in this late. Well, I'll ask this again since we've had another couple people join. Those of you who just came in, do you have a question? WVU football, college football. Suppose it could be, we've talked some about the past, comparing past to present. And I do appreciate that. Like I say, the Thoughts and Mutters channel is the one more people will be interested in. The ideas that I cover there vary widely. Movies, literature, philosophy, and stupid things I've done. And that is a fairly long list, and I will not mention all of them ever, but some of them are on there. There's also the Hyperthyroid Cats channel for those who do have cats. and the um, teak talking for those interested in antiques and collectibles, particularly glass and pottery, but some other things. I do appreciate support in whatever forms it may take. And I will post this again, since if y'all don't want to see this, ask questions, and then I'll put your question up, and then this goes away. And I apologize for the lack of spacing. I had spaces there, I think, and then it changed the formatting when I hit the return key. Well, let's see here. Well, Jack London, I read that back when I was, oh, criminy. Some of his animal stories I was probably reading when I was 10. I think White Fang, something like that. But haven't read, I probably haven't read a Jack London story since I was 16 or so. Yeah, Dickens. The thing I find fascinating, sadly fascinating about Dickens, writing in the 1860s, and the things that he was saying about business back then are the things we have not fixed today. A Christmas Carol remains popular because it remains practically historical. um, but man, I also haven't read Dickens in a long time. And to be honest, I am far more interested in what's typically called popular fiction, things the critics, you know, I actually presented a paper at a conference comparing Beckett's Waiting for Godot to the Charlie Brown, It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, because critics traditionally want, unless it's dark and gritty and has a bad ending, it's not great literature. And of course, at the end of The Great Pumpkin, Linus falls asleep in the pumpkin patch, and Lucy goes out and takes him inside. And I think critics, if that show came on today, critics would throw a fit because Linus didn't die in the end. But I prefer Dick Francis mysteries, David Eddings fantasy, and for people who like Tolkien, Eddings is what people think Tolkien is. Tolkien was a lousy writer. He had a great story, but he didn't write it well. And actually, a writer named Jennifer Crusie, who got her start writing romance novels. But Jennifer Crusie, David Eddings, and Dick Francis, in terms of observing and nailing human behavior in few and precise language, they are better than the writers who get taught in literature classes. And I do have my master's in 20th century American literature and did not quite finish my PhD. And I still haven't read quite a few of the things. Actually, I haven't read some of the things that I wrote about on my PhD exams. That is one of my talents, if you want to call it that. It's also why I've been able to get away with a lot of things and did not have to work as hard as they probably should have gotten me to work. um, Anyway, folks, I appreciate the 4 of you who are still hanging around here. I'm not entirely sure why you're still here, unless it's just to see whether or not I'm going to snap completely, or to see whether or not my bladder is going to hold up long enough for me to sign off. I'm not sure whether my mental state or bladder is going to hold up longest, so I am going to sign off, stumble down to the bathroom, and after that to the kitchen. Appreciate the time and the questions. Thanks, and I will see you again some other time.